Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Movies by McManus podcast. The podcast where we talk about movies, comics, books, TV, all types of media in the context of who created it and what effect it's trying to have on the world. I'm your host, Greg. I'm joined, as always, with my brother, Mike.
Hello. As we wait and see if the studio will collapse with this rain that's pounding on the roof.
Yes, I don't know.
Hopefully it won't.
I don't know if people can hear from the audio or anything if it's loud enough, but it is thunderstorming outside right now, and we're talking about The Sopranos during a thunderstorm. And one of the key moments of the TV show takes place as a thunderstorm. One of my favorite scenes, and I'm
blanking on this.
You're blanking on it. So it's an early
Pine
scene.
Barrens?
It's an early scene, and then it's actually called back to in the last episode when there's a blackout and there's a storm and they have to go to Vesuvio's and
that's a great
Tony
one.
And
that's really early.
That was after Tony his best friend is the guy who runs Vesuvio finds out that Ari finds out that Tony burned
Everybody's
down his
already
first.
Like, fuck this podcast. They don't know the fucking Sopranos.
I forgot one name. I've watched the show maybe 4 times completely front to back, but I forgot one name. But in that scene when they're all hiding from the storm in Vesuvio, Tony turns to his kid and he goes, one day you'll look back and you'll remember the good times like this one. And then in the last scene, AJ turns to his dad and turns to Tony and is like, well, remember the good times. Isn't that what you said? And Tony just doesn't remember. And it's just like, what are you being a wise ass?
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't notice that. But,
yeah,
they do a lot. It ends up in one of the things that we'll talk about. They end up doing kind of these really long callbacks.
They do a lot of really long callbacks. I don't know. I think anybody who's listening to a movie podcast or just anything in general has watched The Sopranos before. So I don't know if we need to give too much exposition about what it's about. I mean, everybody knows
There's
who Tony
multiple
Soprano
shows
is.
that are literally just dedicated to The Sopranos.
Yes, exactly. And there's Sopranos Con, and anybody who's from New York or New Jersey. I lived in New Jersey for 4 years, and everyone's obsessed with The Sopranos and Bruce Springsteen and the entire state. So.
True.
Anybody knows who Tony Soprano is. He's such he's a mythic figure, especially, the mob in New Jersey, there's just so much history there. And, I guess the DeCavalcanti family is kind of what the Soprano family is based on.
He's loosely based off of Vinny Ocean, who was a captain, but pretty much the street boss of the DeCavalcanti family in the, I think, 80s and early 90s.
Right.
And actually, Vinny Ocean lived on Long Island.
He lived on Long Island, and that seemed to be the case for a lot of mobsters. I always find that
they're from Jersey, so.
I always find that mobsters usually don't live where their territory is. You know what I mean? If you talk about Roy DeMeo, when Roy DeMeo, the famous mobster in the late 70s and early 80s, his territory was technically Canarsie, but he lived out here on Long Island in Massapequa, where we grew up.
Yeah. He was, I'm sure he was doing shit all over the place, but
yeah. So I wanted to talk about The Sopranos. What's something that's very interesting to me about The Sopranos is the kind of, not supernatural, but almost afterlife element that's in a lot of it. There's a big spiritual aura that kind of embodies all The Sopranos that I feel like a lot of people kind of, they don't pick up on, or they choose to ignore it. But From Where to Eternity, which is kind of the episode that in my shorter breakdown I focus on a lot, they do talk a lot about the afterlife and spirituality, and they pretty much confirm that, like, yes, in the universe of The Sopranos, there is an afterlife. It's not necessarily like the Christian afterlife, but there is some afterlife, and that one, mistakes from your past and people who you have done wrong who in your past who are no longer here can affect you now. And there is a final resting place for everybody.
Well, I like how they do it because they don't come out and it's not like overtly religious or anything.
No.
Like the episode that Greg's referring to, Christopher is recovering in the hospital after being shot by Bevilacqua and whoever the fuck the other crony's name is.
Yes.
And they're not sure if he's going to make it or not. And it's looking kind of like he's not going to make it for a little while. Adriana's really losing her shit. What an amazing actor she is, by the way.
She's great.
Drea De Matteo. She's unbelievable.
She's great.
Especially in this episode.
She's amazing as Adriana. There are other shows I've seen her in that I wasn't a fan of. She was in the Joey, the Friends spinoff.
I remember that. I remember that when that actually happened. That was like one of the all-time horrible spinoffs.
One of the all-time horrible moments.
But in this episode, I love the way that they do it because basically, as I mentioned, Christopher's recovering from gunshot wounds. He ends up turning the corner and he's basically going to make it. And when he comes to, he lets Tony know and he lets Paulie know that he had essentially, one of those, saw the light moments or whatever you want to say, where, he had a near-death experience and he saw some of his family who has passed on and some people who they have basically killed, because the Michael Palmisi hit Christopher and Paulie.
It's Christopher
did, right?
and Paulie, and that comes up later because after he tells Tony and Paulie, like, I was in hell, there's a spot there waiting for me, you got a reservation there, you got a reservation there, that's where we go when we die. And I like how, like, there's a mobster specific hell that he says it's our hell is the Emerald Piper. It's an Irish bar where it's every day is St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, which does kind of sound like hell, even though we're Irish, so.
Well, yes.
But I if you've worked in a bar on St. Patrick's Day, depending on my mood, it's either a great time or it could be hell. But anyway, I like how they do this though because it's not clear whether Christopher really had this vision or not. Like
no,
they don't hit you over the head with like. I feel like in a lesser, and I don't know who directed this episode. I think Imperioli wrote that episode.
And Michael Imperioli wrote it.
But in a lesser director's hands, that could have played really, like, corny.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I like the way that they do it because it's like, did he see the vid? Because it makes sense. Like, sure, they're basically they're terrible people, and they're, if hell exists, we kind of differ, like, religiously. I'm not a believer, and I think you are. I know you used to be, at least, but whether that's important or not, my point is you kind of don't know what's going on,
right? So,
like, I like that.
Well, the point that I was trying to make was that whatever your religious beliefs are, in the world of The Sopranos, there definitely is some type of afterlife.
See, I didn't get that. I got it
when in that same episode when Paulie Walnuts, he, like, goes to the seance, and this guy is basically, he's able to, like, tell all of Paulie's, like, former murders,
which is interesting because generally those people would be characterized as, like, a crock, you know what I mean? But, like, how would he have that information?
Exactly.
We're never really told why he has that information.
Well, I mean, I'd like to think that he was there. I'd like to think, because it's interesting, because yes, in, like, normally that character would be portrayed as like a total scam artist.
Yeah.
I always felt like in The Sopranos, it's the seance characters who are the real deal, and then it's kind of the religious like Catholic priest characters who are viewed as these are the guys who are running the scam. Like,
which they are.
Carmela's friend, who's the priest,
that guy
is clearly like
such a piece of shit.
he's just
great character though. On the show.
He's trying to use this kind of religious authority to really just like turn on housewives and like try to bang housewives.
So weird. That's such a weird scam.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that like normally or in a show, it's the religion with the authority that would be viewed as like being legit, and it would be the seance like people who would be viewed as the scammers. But in this one, they're kind of hinting at like, no, this guy's the real deal. I mean, he knew that when Paulie killed Michael Palmisi that he got
Poison ivy.
Poison ivy.
Yeah, that's a piece. Because I was gonna say like, all right, yeah, but you know as well as anybody that what happens in a movie and what happens in a film is not necessarily everything that's told to you.
No,
there could have been someone who, like, I forget how he even got hooked up with that seance guy or the therapist, but there could have been someone who'd been like, hey, by the way,
it was his girlfriend.
So she wouldn't have known any of that shit either. Yeah. So
and he was like, yeah, and I made the appointment under a fake name. I called from a payphone,
right.
So like, there's no way he could have tracked it.
So that's pretty interesting.
And then there's a scene later on where like, Paulie is at the Bada Bing, and it's like early in the day and no one's there, and he just like sees the Virgin Mary up on like the dance floor. And
I missed that because, and I was watching the whole episode. I must have zoned out or something.
It's not in that episode. It's on. It's in the later season.
Okay, never mind.
But
because he talks about it.
Yes, he talks about it in the final episode.
Okay,
he's like, I never told you this tape, but I saw the Virgin Mary.
You just gave him the weirdest accent ever, but that's cool.
He's Paulie Walnuts. He can have a weird accent. So I want to
ask a southern accent.
I want to ask you: do you think Tony is dead at the end?
I mean, this is not really a fair question because now we know that David Chase said so.
Yes. So
without that information, like how I thought about it in the years since the show, I didn't know, just like anybody else did. So I don't want to come out and say like, oh, he's definitely dead now, because it's almost not fair.
It's almost not fair because yes, David Chase has pretty much all but
I'll say this
that Tony is dead.
Having watched it, and I watched this episode when it happened because as I was explaining to Greg last night as we watched the two episodes that we're discussing today and how they relate to each other. But I watched the series finale as it was like actually happening in 2007, and I was watching it with my friend Bill, and I remember that we thought something was wrong with the TV.
Right. I think that was like the consensus of most people. Like,
yeah.
They thought something. I was watching it like the next day on DVR. And so I had even more of a reason to think something cut out.
Was DVR even around back then?
DVR was around back then. Yeah.
I don't fucking remember that.
Yeah,
but anyway,
it was 2008. Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't. But anyway, on a recent viewing, being that we just watched it last night, I'm saying yes.
Yes.
Because I didn't remember how kind of heavy they play the guy at the
guy in the members only jacket.
I remember the episode being a lot more like, and maybe this was just we're viewing it now with all this information and we're looking for shit. But at the time, I remember when it ended being like, what the fuck? What? Like, nothing happened. But now when you go back and watch it, you see like, okay, they're really kind of like focusing on this dude at the counter.
There's a dude
and he does
at the
look
counter.
shady as fuck.
He's shady as fuck. He's in a members only jacket, which like members only can be viewed as like he's a member of the Mafia. And he's glaring at Tony the entire time.
He is, and they keep cutting to. We don't he's not like a lower like crew guy from somewhere. Like we never have seen this guy before.
No, I don't.
He's not like a New York soldier guy.
No,
or associate?
I mean, maybe.
I'm sure that's clearly the idea.
Yeah.
Like, if he was killed, he's clearly a New York guy.
Yeah.
He's not some random schmuck who decides to kill a fucking mafia boss in a restaurant.
So, well, I don't know, because there was recently a random schmuck who killed a mafia boss.
This is true. R.I.P. to the god, Frank Cali.
R.I.P. Frank Cali.
You already know.
Frank Cali.
Gambino boys out here.
Who was murdered by a QAnon conspiracy theorist.
And by the way, I'm not saying R.I.P. Frank Cali. I'm sure he was a piece of shit. Allegedly involved in, like, heroin trafficking, so he could go fucking... I hope he rots, actually. I hate drug dealers. Heroin dealers...
I'm saying R.I.P. Frank Cali.
All right, whatever.
But murdered...
by the way, fuck the zips, man.
Murdered in front of...
Did you see that net... I'm just going off on the tangent.
All right.
Sorry. Did you see the Netflix documentary about the 10 most wanted and the one guy who is the Sicilian mobster? He's a piece of shit. He fucking, like, killed one of his rivals, like, 8-year-old sons. If you fuck with children... You're out of here.
Yeah, but well, Frank Cali was born in Sicily, and he very much, him and like the Sicilian crew kind of took over the Gambino family.
Yes.
And
because let's be honest, the Gambinos in the 90s were kind of a disgrace with the guy who was around the block from us at the time. John Gotti Jr.
John Gotti
I think
Jr.
we're having spirits talking. That's one of
spirits
Paulie Walnuts' guys.
One of Paulie Walnuts' guys. My favorite line in the entire, like, possibly my favorite line in all 6 seasons of the show. Paulie Walnuts is just like freak the fuck out at the seance, and he's like, just like, I'm asking you to leave because like he knows he's killed all these people, and Paulie just grabs a chair and is like, fucking quiz.
Yes, which is Paulie Walnuts' words.
Which is Paulie Walnuts' words, which is not my words.
Any future employee, don't fucking employer, don't cut that out. And I got your back, Greg. Don't worry.
Thank you.
But it is like what a fucking tremendous scenes. Hey, by the way, and I think we've mentioned this in the introduction. I think we're allowed to talk about that. Greg is actually... So this is one of those YouTube channels where it's actually someone who knows what the fuck they're talking about.
All right,
so
okay.
he's... No. Let me big you up here for a second. Let me be your hype man for a second, okay? So he actually is currently... right? They're going to go back to it. I know you work...
The Many Saints of Newark?
He's working on The Many Saints of Newark, which was obviously filmed before pre-corona, but they're going to film... Are you going to be involved when they go back to do some of the reshoots? Because they're going to do more, right?
I don't know what their reshoot schedule is, but
you would most likely be involved in that, right?
Yes, even if I did know something, I wouldn't really be able to like say.
No. All I was just gonna say, would you be able to talk about your experience with Tony Soprano, who plays Paulie?
I wouldn't be able to talk about anything.
All right, never mind. If you know Greg in person, ask him off.
I wouldn't.
All right, fuck it.
I'm allowed to say that.
Give these people some.
I'm allowed to say I worked on the Sopranos prequel, Many Saints of Newark. I cannot tell you anything that happened on set. I haven't read the script, and even if I did, like, I wouldn't be able to say anything. I'm not allowed to talk.
That's pretty good. That was a good song.
That was Machine Gun Kelly.
Oh, really?
Oh my God! Hold on. Speaking of fucking garbage ass people, Machine Gun Kelly. I have a friend who is obsessed with Machine Gun Kelly.
You should lose that friend.
And
you ever see the Sean Price interview where he talks about Kid Cudi?
No.
Matter of fact, if you're a Kid Cudi fan, kill yourself.
Machine Gun Kelly said this?
No, Sean Price. R.I.P. Sean Price.
I thought you were talking because I have a friend who is like a huge Machine Gun Kelly fan, and every time she brings it up, I'm like, I think you're lying to me because there's no way someone can actually like that garbage.
Travis Barker was like, yo, I was in one of the worst bands of all time. Watch this.
Blink-182 you think is one of the worst bands of all time? This has nothing to do with the Sopranos. But
all right, see, listen, I'm a Green Day guy, you know?
I mean, I'm a Green Day guy too. I love Green Day.
I gotta rep the set. So no, there was a little beef like back in the day about Green Day versus Blink. But anyway,
really? I must
probably not. This is just like what you did in 8th grade. You just talk shit.
I
remember in my instant message bio, I was like, "Fuck Blink-182, they're fucking posers. Green Day for life, son."
I mean, yeah, I'll agree with you. Green Day is the better band. I saw Blink-182.
Green Day sucks too. Let's get that on the
Green
record.
Day is fucking great. What are you talking about?
No.
So is Blink-182 while we're at it.
Yeah, I mean, your music taste is a little questionable. Let's be honest.
saw Blink-182
If it's like 3 in the
summer.
morning and you're drunk, we know Avril Lavigne's coming on.
Hell yeah, Avril Lavigne is coming on when
And the
3 in the
All-American
morning when
Rejects.
I'm drunk. Yes, All
He's
American
proud of
Rejects
this.
is fucking...
He's making-
All American Rejects is fucking dope.
Oh yeah, sure. They're great.
I saw Blink-182 last
One of the
summer,
all-time
and
rock bands.
last summer, and I was front row, and I was wearing a free Billy McFarlane shirt.
A free Eddie McFarlane shirt.
Free Billy McFarlane shirt.
Yeah, Billy McFarlane.
I was hoping they would see it and get mad, but there's
Speaking of
like 1,000 people.
bums.
Speaking of bums, let's get back to The Sopranos because that's what the podcast is about. And we
Yes.
just got into a weird
That's all right.
tangent about fucking early
No one's ever covered The
2000s music.
Sopranos before, so they're really just like, guys, come on, get back to blowing our minds about this little-known TV show.
Called The Sopranos. The ending.
Oh, by the way,
fucking...
one
All
more
hold
time.
on.
All right, go.
Wait, let's go back to Frank Cali because I'm talking about fucking Frank Cali.
Back to
How
Frank
QAnon, literally a QAnon conspiracy theorist, murdered the boss of the Gambino crime family in
Yes.
front of his house in Staten Island.
True.
Because Frank Cali wouldn't let the kid date his niece.
I mean, that's kind of grounds for murder. Let's be honest.
But I just love the
He was trying to slide up in them cheeks.
I just love the like...
And the mob boss said, "And no cheeks." And he goes, "Word?"
Word murder. But also it's like he wanted this kid away from his niece because this kid was a psychopath, and I'm just imagining in this kid's head he was just like, think I'm a psychopath? Well, I'll show you. I'll commit murder. They'll prove to everyone I'm not a psychopath.
I'm a psychopath?
Fucking
You're a pedophile, and you were involved in 9/11. I feel like we drop a lot of 9/11 references.
we're from Long Island. I mean,
What?
Well, you know,
What does that have to... Oh, okay.
Because we were
New
close
York?
by. Because we were close by.
Sure.
All right, so back to The Sopranos.
Mm-hmm.
The ending I always liked of, like, yes, it's basically confirmed that Tony dies at the end, but the way I always explained it until now, because now I've kind of changed my mind, because now I'm on the side of, like, it doesn't matter what happens. Like, now, as I explained in my 10-minute video of... I don't really think it matters what happened. I used to keep saying that if you notice in the last scene, he's like kind of getting nervous, more nervous, and every time like someone walks in the door, he immediately looks up and looks at the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I always said that the cut to black is not Tony dying. It's the cut to black is Tony like having the realization that like he's never going to be able to relax again for the rest of his life.
Well, I don't...
That he's going to spend the rest of his life constantly looking over his shoulder. That's what I used to believe. I no longer really think that. I explained in my shorter video of the comparisons of like, you know, the metaphor of there's a place reserved for you in hell, and like compare that to the idea of like when you're in the Mafia, there is kind of a place reserved for you in federal prison. Like, at least modern day, I mean, yes, like there are gangsters from like way back in the early century who like lived long lives and never really went to prison. But modern day Mafia people, like that's what you sign up for when you join the mob, is that one day there's going, well, that's what you sign up for when you commit when you're a criminal in person, is like,
if you conspire with another person to do anything, it's only a matter of time, because you know, that other person could get in trouble for fucking anything. But if that's their get out of jail free card of like, I can testify and fucking try to save my skin a little bit, they'll jump at the opportunity. Of course they're gonna sell you out.
Yeah.
If it's someone who's okay with selling drugs to fucking kids or fucking robbing someone by gunpoint or doing anything, like, Of course they don't have a spine. Of course they're gonna rat you out.
That's another thing that when people ask of like, why are there so many rats in the mafia? It's like,
There's rats everywhere. Everyone's a fucking rat.
No, but it's like, well, if you're the type of person who would join the mafia, then you're the same type of person who would sell them out. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, there are a few like real deal people like Vinny Gorgeous. Yeah. Who, you know, like there are some people, the guy who killed, well, he was actually Greek, but he was a Genovese soldier in Massachusetts who killed Bulger.
Oh, wow. I didn't know.
The guy who killed Bulger in jail was a Genovese, not soldier. He wasn't a made guy because he was Greek.
Yeah, but he famously hated rats, and he hated anybody who like...
Oh, we're getting all types of visitors today.
We're getting all types of stuff. I don't know if they could even hear...
We're lit over here.
I don't know if like the audio people could even like hear that over there. So
the audio files?
So they might just like not even know what the fuck we're talking about.
Whatever, fuck them. No, we appreciate you.
Where was I?
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
This is a wild one.
What I was saying was, if you decide you're going to be criminal, you're putting a clock down of when they're going to come get you. Dude. And the metaphor works perfectly of just like the metaphor of there's a spot reserved for you in hell. It works perfectly of just like one of these days the federal government is going to come get you, and you're going to this man-made hell that is prison.
Yeah, I mean, unless you could sell out someone even bigger than you, you know?
Right.
But even then, you're still going to do some time. There's no real
I mean, you're talking about Joe Messina. Oh,
God.
Joe Messina, if you're not like real deep into the mafia like me and my brother are, Joe Messina was the boss of the Bonanno crime family. He was the boss. He got in trouble and he sold out everybody underneath him, which if you like read the books about this guy, it's ridiculous because
it's insane.
He's ratting people out for committing crimes that he told them to commit.
Yes.
And they're getting longer prison sentences.
I don't understand this, okay? What was in it for the government to accept Joe Messina turning informant to get Vinny Gorgeous? Like, that's what doesn't make sense. He got a lower level guy. What wouldn't they? He's the big fish. Wouldn't the government want Messina? I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense.
I think
I know you got me and I'm the biggest boss, but like, let me get you my street boss. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
I think it is sort of setting a precedent. I think it's setting a precedent.
They just wanted to be able to say they flipped a boss.
They flipped a boss. They're setting a precedent. So now, you set a precedent in 2006 when Joe Messina, the boss of the Bonanno family, flips and turns over his captains. You are setting a precedent that even a boss can flip. Mm-hmm. Like, how can you trust being part of a criminal organization when the guy who's in charge, who's giving you the orders, might be working for the federal government?
Yeah, or might fucking have you killed. I mean, they don't kill people anymore, but it's just
they really don't.
It's just a stupid organization, really. It really is.
I think from what I understand, it's mostly either people who are just 100% drug dealers and drug smugglers, or it's people committing, and that's more the Sicilian side, as I understand, because the mafia over in Europe, in Sicily, is basically it's run less like how we think of the mob,
more of a cartel.
More of like a Mexican cartel than like how the Sopranos were portraying it.
Oh yeah, no, the American mafia is very different. I mean, you know, the mafia in Italy they're very, very just, I mean, they're fucking grimy people. I mean, the kid killed women, children. Well, they deal heroin. Like they deal the Gambinos dealt heroin. Obviously, there's the big heroin case of the 80s we know about, which sent Gotti's brother away until basically last year. Gene Gotti. But they're, I don't know.
Peter got there's Gene and Peter, John Gotti's two brothers. Peter is currently serving a life sentence. Peter became the boss after Gotti Jr.
Is that true?
He's
serving a life sentence?
I'm almost positive. In like 2005, he got a life sentence. And then Gene just got out. Gene Gotti got out, and then like a month later, the QAnon conspiracy theorist killed Frank Cali. And everybody thought, and the Guardian Angels dude.
Yes. He wasn't the only one.
No, he wasn't the only one, but like you do recognize like Curtis's voice, and
it was a mob hit.
Yeah, the mobsters.
There was blood in the streets.
The mobsters choking on the lobsters. He was very vocal that he thought like this fucking 90-year-old man whacked out a boss.
I mean, he was only like 72 or something. He wasn't that old. But the point being, like, I thought that too. I had a friend, my friend, who shall remain nameless. He grew up around in Ozone Park, and he's an older guy. He knew a lot of those people. He was like, see, I told you. Because he was telling me, he was like...
really?
Yeah. My friend Joe, he's from Ozone Park, and I was like working with him at the time. And he was just like, when Gene gets out, like, there's going to be a fucking war. Because Gene's like not going to accept like being shelved.
Oh,
that's
wow.
Yeah, and then a fucking month later...
Yeah.
Cali was hit,
I guess there
and I'm just like, oh shit, Gene's trying to bring the American Gambinos back. Like, he's like, fuck this Sicilian bullshit. Like, that's what I thought. But it ended up being some fucking crazy... I mean, look, let's be honest. A lot of the crazy shit that's going on right now is fucking far-right QAnon people. I mean, it's crazy that Kyle Turd Face, whatever this fucking
dude who decided he was going to go into.
He wasn't a QAnon guy, but he was.
No, he wasn't. But he was fucking
nut job.
Yeah, and he went into a protest with the fucking just everybody
over the state lines.
Over the state lines,
looking
with an AR-15, clearly looking for protesters to murder. His mom fucking drove him and gave him the gun, so she's probably going to go to prison also.
I mean, it's
you
insane.
Can't arm a 17-year-old, and like that's crazy illegal.
Well, it is crazy illegal, and
obviously
everybody knows
illegal.
The pictures of him walking past the police and them doing nothing about it, and even kind of, I'm not going to go so far as to say they were like, you know, everyone's putting that video out where they're like, we appreciate you guys, and they're giving him a water bottle. They didn't know.
Hold on. That was before the murders.
No, that's what I'm saying.
That was before the murders happened.
Obviously.
Yes.
But, like, still, the point being, he's walking down the street with a fucking, what is it, an AR-15 or something?
Yeah.
A giant gun.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, dude, it's insane. Like, and then everyone's pointing out, like, I posted something this morning, like, Tamir Rice is killed because he has a fucking toy gun.
Yes,
a 12-year-old,
and he's walking down the street. And first of all, why the fuck? Why is this police department accepting the help of these people? Why are they accepting the help of these right wing armed radicals?
I have no fucking idea. I have some private opinions on that, which I maybe shouldn't share. But I mean, the point is, like, you know, these are quote unquote. You're supposed to be supporting law and order. What part of law and order is someone who is, first of all, under the legal age for open carry, but these guys fucking walking around with AR-15s that are not law enforcement people.
Yeah,
this is law. This is law and order. Like,
exactly.
It's fucking. It's chaos. It's the exact opposite of law and order.
Yeah. This our Sopranos podcast has gone, because we were talking about the Sopranos, and then we were talking about early 2000s music, and then back to the Sopranos, and now on to QAnon and
I mean,
law.
It all sort of makes sense.
It all does sort of make sense
to me for some reason. I mean, that's life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Life is fucking goes in zigs and zags.
Yeah.
Take us on home.
Well,
Greg. No, we still got time. But
we're talking a lot about the difference between like the Sicilian and the American mafia, but if you just look at their histories, they're just like very different. Where throughout history, like the Sicilian mafia has always kind of been this drug smuggling organization.
Yeah,
when
Pizza Connection in the 80s.
Yes, when for a lot of the American mafia's history, it was trying to break into more legitimate companies. Like if you're looking at like the American
I mean,
mob.
it was heavy on extortion.
It was
let's
heavy
be
on
honest.
extortion, but
heavy on
also it was
extortion.
very heavy on gambling.
Yeah,
and they
always.
opened up a lot of legal casinos.
Loan sharking.
And loan sharking, and it was operated almost more like a legitimate business, the American Mafia.
Yeah, I mean,
And union racketeering, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think in America there is a lot more of a push to because a push to get into legitimate business because
Money laundering.
Yeah. But there was always like a lot of people. People claim that like Paul Castellano was one of these people who was the boss in the 80s, who their dream was that the mafia would one day become 100% legitimate. And I think with the Sicilian
part
mafia,
of what got him whacked
Yeah.
is because he thought of himself. He was trying to be so legitimate that he eventually kind of started, looking down on some of the soldiers' activities that were, still being very violent.
Yeah.
That kind of led to obviously Gotti taking over because, as the Gotti faction and the Neil Della Croce's, they were quote unquote street guys.
The Neil Della Croce and Gotti, they called that faction the Manhattan faction.
Mm-hmm.
And then Paul Castellano and like Roy DeMeo and Anthony Gaggi were kind of called the Brooklyn faction, and with the Gambinos, those two factions kind of go back a long way.
I always say though, man, if DeMeo could have survived those couple of early years in the '80s when they were really swarming around his auto scam,
Yeah.
if he could have somehow survived that, him and Gotti would have teamed up like a motherfucker.
I don't know if they would have because
man. I think they would have been
because they hated each other. They
hated Castellano.
They both hated Castellano,
and they were both serious street people.
They were both serious street people. They both hated Castellano.
I mean,
but they like DeMeo wanted to take out Castellano because he wanted Anthony Gaggi as boss.
Right.
Gotti wanted to, and Gotti almost, when there was a contract out on Roy DeMeo, John Gotti almost took it. They explained that in Murder Machine, but
but Murder Machine is supposedly
yes.
There's a bunch of BS in there.
I mean, who knows what
Who the
is
fuck
BS
knows? Yeah,
and
exactly.
what's not? And I'm
sure
just
it was a
talking about
conversation.
like I'm trying to say like I'm not just making this up. Like there's a book where
No,
they
I
say
get
this.
it. Yeah.
Was that? But what they were saying was like John Gotti was considering taking it, but that John Gotti was also kind of afraid of Roy DeMeo because really just like everybody was afraid of
how
Roy
could you
DeMeo.
not be? The guy's a fucking literal monster.
They compared just like at that point in his life, John Gotti had killed 7 people, but Roy DeMeo had killed close to 200 people.
It's Massapequa, man.
Yeah,
that's what we
That's
do.
Massapequa. That's what we do. That's Long Island. That's that shit. We listen to Blink 182 at 3 a.m. and we kill people.
Yes, that is the slogan on the sign
Massapequa.
yeah.
How crazy is it of there really used to be like a lot of mob guys when we moved in here. When we first went to Massapequa, when we were like young in
Yes,
like 1994, there was a lot of mob guys.
I mean,
and
DeMeo was dead already.
DeMeo was dead, but John Gotti Jr. lived.
Gambino was dead already.
Gambino was dead already, yes, but John Gotti Jr. lived 2 blocks away from us.
Correct.
When we grew up. And I remember there was like a few like lower level people, like I'm not going to say anybody's name, but I remember when I was like very little on the school bus and there were like all the kids who were saying like my dad's in the mob, and I was always thought that they were just like fucking around.
Oh,
and
I know who you're talking
looking
about.
back, I was like, oh shit, his dad was in the mob.
I know who you're talking about.
It was more than one person. It was like a few people.
I know, but the one that was really close to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like.
He was actually kind of a nice guy.
No, he is. So with the Sopranos, I want to talk about Analyze This for a bit because they kind of come out in the same time, and everyone kind of like says Analyze This was a ripoff of the Sopranos, but I don't really agree with that.
I mean, I mean, apples and oranges, man.
Well, they're like, well, here's a movie about a gangster,
a fucking rom-com,
going to see a psychiatrist.
Oh, that is true. The psychiatrist.
Yes,
yeah.
But
literally, that's
Analyze This is kind of a modern day retelling of the gangster Frank Costello, who I don't know if you know. Frank Costello was the boss of the Genovese family in the 50s. Who saw a psychiatrist, and that was kind of the influence of both of the Sopranos. Analyze This is kind of like a modern day telling of his life.
Okay, I didn't know that.
This was a guy who was depressed because he really didn't want to be a mafia boss. Like this guy Frank Costello.
That's a bad job to have.
He was forced into the mob because he was good friends with Charlie Luciano, who kind of started it. And then when Charlie Luciano gets deported to Italy, Charlie kind of forces Frank Costello to take control of the family, despite the fact that he doesn't really want to, despite the fact that he never really wanted to be a gangster to begin with. And he goes to see a psychiatrist, and people view him as weak because of this. Right. So Vito Genovese, who ends up being the boss, tries to have him murdered, and it's failed. And then Frank Costello kind of decides that he's going to retire and he's just going to step away and he's just going to let Vito be the boss. And this is around the time of like 1957 when the Appalachian meeting happens.
Yes.
The Appalachian meeting is this meeting in upstate New York of all the mobsters around the world in upstate New York.
Which you know who was there, right?
Our guy.
Our grandmother's uncle.
Yes.
Was there. And probably her nephew, who's still around, and I shouldn't say his name because he's still an active member.
Yeah. But they go in and arrest these people, and Frank Costello kind of walks away because he had retired. And like that's almost like to a T the plot of Analyze This.
Yes, exactly.
And they do have like a mini Appalachian meeting at the end of the movie.
Everyone I hate that scene because it's
Oh, really?
Well, just because it's so inaccurate as far
the
as
entire movie is inaccurate.
I know. But that one in particular, like some schmuck that no one's ever heard of, who's not even Italian, let alone not even an associate, is gonna go into some meeting. Like, I know you have to suspend your disbelief, but that always just whenever that scene comes on, I'm like, ah.
Well, like everything mob related is unrealistic. The Sopranos is unrealistic. I mean, you look at the last season.
At least the structure is.
The last season of The Sopranos is like 2008, and like 7, and they portrayed the mob as way more powerful than they actually were in 2007.
Absolutely.
Like when there's a scene when like Tony and Bobby Bacala are having a meeting, and Christopher walks in over like some petty bullshit, and Tony is just like, "This is what you have to bother me about? We're having a meeting over a multi-million-dollar contract," and it's like the mob wasn't doing it.
See, I disagree with that. I'm with you from the standpoint of like.
They didn't murder as many people.
Violence. Yeah. I mean, they were still. Now they're basically not violent.
Yeah.
I mean, so we think. I mean, who the hell really knows? But they're not dropping bodies.
No.
You know, I'm sure they're probably not even really assaulting loan shark victims, like people that are like deadbeats. Like, I don't even know if they're assaulting people anymore. They're probably threatening them still. Like, you know who I work for? Like that type of thing. But, you know, everything, you can't get away with jack shit anymore with fucking cameras and shit. But anyway, in 2007, but as far as like construction and union rigging, they dude, you'd be surprised. Like still to this day, there's like shit that goes on that's like very fucking lucrative. Okay. You know, I mean, so from that standpoint, I think it was, but as far as the grandiosity of it all, like definitely exaggerated.
No, and they get away with so much shit in that show that like a real mobster would never get away with. Yes. Like I like the there's a scene where they go to Atlantic City. It's like when Christopher is first made, they're in Atlantic City, and Christopher and Paulie are like fighting over the bill because like Christopher, he's the newly made guy, so he's supposed to pay for everything, and he kind of sticks Paulie with the bill, and they're fighting over it. and the waiter comes out and is like, because they didn't give him a tip, and they fucking murder the waiter. Or like
not on purpose.
Not on purpose. Yeah. He like they
throw a rock at him.
Throw a rock at him and has a seizure. But then they shoot him.
Yes. but because at that point, you know, if he lives, they're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
I know, but they never explain it. They just drop the body there.
But the point is, they go back, and the only line is like, I think we'll be okay. Nobody knows us down there. And it's like, really? There was a huge meeting of all Mafia people in Atlantic City, and a waiter shows up in the back alley with a bunch of bullets in him, and you think, well, no one knows us down there.
Yeah, if only it was that simple. Yeah, I mean, I've been watching Forensic Files like crazy on Netflix because they got it on. I used to watch it when I was a kid all the time. It's one of my favorite shows. Now it's on Netflix. But like, motherfucker, like people are so dumb, dude.
Right.
Like,
well, what are you
9 times
about?
out of 10, it's like the guy's wife, the guy's husband, like the girl's whatever. So it's always someone you know.
I used to work on a lot of investigation discovery shows. Yes. I don't know if you remember that.
Of course I do.
It was always...
What was the show you worked on?
Was The Perfect Murder.
The Perfect Murder.
Yes.
Yeah. He has, by the way, like 20 fucking cameos on that show.
And I do, yeah.
Yes. If you watched The Perfect Murder from like, what, 2014 to 17, 14 to 18, 15 to 18, whatever, the last 5 years.
I'm going to say, if I was 2 years, 2015 to 2017.
He's in so many fucking episodes as like a pizza guy, a bartender, the boyfriend, whatever.
But it's so many just like they got caught because they just told their girlfriend or like one of their friends. They just bragged about a fucking murder.
Again, look at the gem, and I'm going to go back to this.
Master Jess, I wanted to come up with that. I wanted to bring that up because you were bringing it up before. That 18 years later, and it really is when I'm talking about just like your spots reserved in hell, your spots reserved in prison. Just like you commit a fucking crime. 18 years later, they come. When you commit a fucking murder in this day and age, they are going to find you. And like,
Tenard Washington, one of the guys who was already in prison for other charges, had basically just told his girlfriend, "You better hope that relationship lasts, bro."
Yeah. It's like, oh, yo, by the way, you remember Rum DMC? You remember Rum DMC?
Yeah.
I killed that guy. Yeah. It is ridiculous, and that
How about I'll Be Gone in the Dark?
I'll Be Gone.
Dude, they got D'Angelo
off of 23andMe.
Yeah, it wasn't that one, but it was one of those sites.
Yeah.
But the point is, and the last crime that is known to be committed from the Golden State Killer and the East Area Rapist and the Visalia Ransacker, the last known crime was 83. So that's fucking what, 30? When was he arrested? 2019? So that's 36 years that he got away. But still, that you get that fucking knock on you. That's why I'll never do anything fucking crazy criminal. My conscience can't handle that.
But there is like,
how do you sleep?
Take away the like spiritual metaphor in The Sopranos. There is a very much just like, if you're in this life, you have to accept the fact that like this is how it ends. That it ends with a knock at your door and you're going to prison. And the Mafia in real life, that's what it is. You sign up for it. You sign up to be in any criminal organization, and that's what you are signing your life away to do. The price of admission to be in the mob is that one day you're going to get that knock on your door.
I'll say this in terms of where the mob is currently, and we did a lot of mob talk on this one. I wasn't necessarily expecting to do so, but it's cool. Joseph Camarano Jr., who is the street boss of the Bonanno family, he and the not the underboss. I think he might be considered the underboss or the consigliere. I can't remember, but his name's Porky John something. His name's Porky. There was a big trial last year, and they were facing like wire fraud, fucking conspiracy to commit murder. Like they were facing serious fucking charges. That was like 25 plus, in terms of like what the sentence can be. They ended up getting off, but I mean, I guess. Like
that's the exception to the rule.
Very true.
That's the exception rule.
Yeah, most people don't want to do more than, like, nowadays, if you're going to go to jail for even, like, 2 years, like, people will rat over that, you know? But you don't see, most mob cases now are just, like, you know, it's generally, like, loan sharking.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But, I don't know, man. There's so much to talk about when it comes to The Sopranos.
That's the thing that... like I kind of wanted to, you know, narrow it down, especially with like my YouTube video of just like, I want to talk about a very specific thing just because like this is such a big show and there are so many themes. Like there's the theme of just like immigration, of just like not necessarily immigration, but it's just like this ethnic group that has been in America for a while but still isn't fully American. You know,
but it's interesting how Tony uses that because it's kind of bullshit.
It's kind of bullshit.
Like he knows what he's doing. He uses it as kind of like,
yes,
we're oppressed. It's like, nah,
but
really,
you
man.
see this in David Chase's real life because David Chase, his last name is not Chase. It's
right.
It's something super Italian, and his dad had it changed to Chase because he did not want people knowing he was Italian.
Dude, no. Don't get me wrong. That's certainly a real thing, especially, I mean, within our own family. Like, our grandfather's family, you know, faced discrimination with housing because they were Puerto Rican.
For being Puerto Rican, exactly.
And, you know, like, there's a lot of truth to that, and I'm not downplaying that that the Italian people, you know, face that. What I'm saying is like Tony's a bad guy, and but he knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
and he uses that as kind of like, we're soldiers. We gotta, you know, Christopher Columbus, and it's like, yeah, bro, but you're a fucking murderer.
There is a lot of bullshit with Tony Soprano, and this just goes to James Gandolfini's performance, where like every time Tony kind of gets into one of these tyrants of just like, well, you know, when the Italians came here, you know, the rich, they wanted us as their worker bees and we weren't going to handle it. And, you know, all these Americans, they were murderers too, but everybody looks down at us because we were in the Mafia. Or like when he's talking about like we're soldiers or whatever.
He's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong. But, and it goes to how good of an actor James Gandolfini is.
Exactly.
Is like, you can tell he wants you to believe this, but he doesn't believe it at all.
Well, he has this great thing that he does, and this was also in the I don't know how much we've talked about it on this podcast. I know you did on your breakdown video, but we're looking at 2 episodes here. There's the one from the second season. What's it called?
From Where to Eternity.
And the last episode of the series.
Yeah.
And how they kind of intertwine thematically. But in that episode from season 2, From Here to Eternity, it's another example, almost like the Italians are, you know, being persecuted thing, where Tony does this thing which is brilliant, and Gandolfini like does it so well. Whenever he knows he's basically wrong, he just kind of goes on the offense.
Right.
You know, like when Carmela is talking to him about like, hey, you're putting our family at risk by like fucking around with all these different women. And you know, like if there was she calls it a bastard child to happen, it would be such a disgrace on our family's name. And he, instead of like, I mean, she's got him fucking nailed, right?
Yeah.
Like, what can you possibly say to that? You know, and he's been caught. He knows that that's what he does. But he goes on the offense. He's like, I told you I broke things off with her. What's wrong with you? Like he goes like, I had her tested for AIDS. like I'm this great guy. Like, what the hell is your problem? You're giving me a hard time about like these other girls that I'm fucking.
Yeah. Like. He also he says at the end of the episode when Carmela and him are talking, and he has this very heartfelt of just like, I promise I'm not going to screw around anymore.
Which is
and it's interesting watching that scene because he seems like he means it so much, and we know that he doesn't because we've watched the rest of the show, we know he like still is gonna fuck around. Yeah. But that's who Tony Soprano is.
But he's a sociopath. I mean, he genuinely. I mean, it's like when there's another episode where he basically he basically convinces Christopher that like this guy is the guy who killed your father. You know, the cop, and he's like, and it turns out to maybe that wasn't the case.
My
point is he has no problem making an argument with a straight fucking face, which is a complete lie or majority a lie, but he'll do it anyway because it gets him to what he needs to do. So like when he's in that scene that you're referring to where he's like telling Carmela he's never going to cheat again, essentially, like I didn't even like, he's just such a sociopath that he doesn't mind like saying an outright lie. Like, you know, it's like, it's so interesting. It's like acting within acting almost.
Right.
You know, like he's Gandolfini's brilliant because he's acting as a guy who's acting. Like, yeah.
Gandolfini was, I'll say this because, you know, it doesn't really relate to many Saints of Newark, but I had heard a lot of stories from like people who were on the crew who used to work on The Sopranos.
Because it's a lot of the same crew.
It's a lot of the same crew.
Able to say that?
I can say that. It's a lot of the same crew. And they were talking about there was a bar that they all went to after shoots, the entire crew, and that it was like near where they were filming. So
like throughout the series, they would.
Throughout the series, well, I'm actually not sure if this was on The Sopranos or if it was on the other gangster movie Gandolfini did that took place in New Orleans. With, Killing Them Softly. It might have been on Killing Them Softly that there was a bar they always went to, and like Gandolfini would walk in, he would get like 3 bottles of wine just to go, and then leave his card on the table and be like, anyone on the crew, just charge them to my card.
That's sick. Yeah,
I mean, is sick. I don't know because New Jersey has to-go bottles. You can do that, but so does New Orleans. So I'm not sure. Also, that Killing Them Softly movie is fucking terrible.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen it, but it is garbage.
It's a couple of quick references or quick connections. Is well, Gandalf, as we've mentioned before, our family has run and operated a bar in New York since the early 1900s called Peter McManus Cafe,
where every day is St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah,
and that's where the mobsters go.
When Christopher's describing hell, he's
literally describing Peter McManus. Like it's literally, like, and a bunch of the Irish guys, they're always winning the hands, and I was like, yeah, that would be me and Mike.
But Gandolfini was I don't know that we'd call him, well, at one time he was a regular there before our time.
Yes,
you know,
that is
like
true.
In the mid-90s.
This was before The Sopranos.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he actually dated one of our friends who is a longtime employee of theirs, of Peter McManus Cafe. But I forget what my other point was. Oh, one of the other bartenders there who's now been there over 10 years, been there for a while. I used to work with him, my buddy Joe. He was in a rap group back in the day with Slaine, the rapper Slaine.
I don't know who Slaine is.
He's pretty big from Boston. But anyway, he's in that movie Killing Him Softly as well.
Oh, all right.
Mm-hmm. So just it's interesting when the worlds kind of collide. Like you keep doing shit for a while and you meet some interesting people, you know? Like how cool is it for you? And I know you can't really talk about it, but like for me, being your older brother, like I don't want to say I'm more proud. I'm not more proud of you for that because I'm proud of you regardless. But the point is that's pretty fucking cool that it's a show. I remember when you first got it, just being like, it's insane because this is a show that you grew up with, and now you're working on it.
It was a movie I was really hoping to get hired on because just the history of myself with The Sopranos, of like when it was on TV, this was a show that I kind of had to sneak to watch because I was super young. So I would have to, the first time I like saw it in full was when they recut it for A&E, and and it's not the same show. And I remember I watched it on A&E and I like didn't like it, and it wasn't until it just like seemed like totally different. Like I remember when I was a little kid trying to sneak in to watch The Sopranos, and it was just like this super violent show. Everyone was cursing every 5 seconds. There were boobies, and then when I watched it on A&E,
Boobies?
there were, yeah, all right, fine.
I haven't heard that word in a long time.
Well, I'm saying it as if like
Sure,
from the point of view of me as a
Gotcha.
6-year-old trying to watch The Sopranos.
Gotcha.
Of like that's the word I would use.
Yes.
And then watching it like recut on A&E, I was like probably a freshman in high school, and it just like didn't seem like the same show at all. And then, you know, obviously I was watching it on you know, the HBO Go and everything like throughout college, and I've probably seen the entire like all 6 seasons maybe like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And then particular episodes I've seen, like, I don't know, the first episode I've probably seen like 10 times, you know. From Here to Eternity is one of my favorite all-time episodes.
That's a mind-blowing
From Where to Eternity
episode.
is one of my favorite all-time episodes. So much just happens in that episode.
I know. I couldn't believe it. Like, I'm like, holy shit, this is... Because I know a lot of times with the series, for me anyway, like, I know all these moments, but you don't necessarily remember, like, where they are.
Yeah. It's interesting.
And there's so much that there's so many classic Sopranos moments that happen in that episode.
And it's interesting that that episode kind of ends with a murder with Matthew Bevilacqua.
I'm sorry, I'm on the last episode. Yes.
Matthew Bevilacqua. It kind of ends with a murder, and it's interesting
we could do a whole podcast just on that guy.
Just on.
Anyway, go.
Well, it's interesting that just this.
Not Bevilacqua, the actor who plays.
The actor, and he sucks. He's good as Matthew Bevilacqua. As Matthew Bevilacqua,
he's horrible
he's
in The Bronx
good.
Tale.
In The Bronx Tale is one of the worst movies. Is one of the worst gangster movies of all time.
It's such a bad movie.
No, actually,
the beginning's great, though.
The beginning's great. When he's a little kid, it's great. That's like a third of the movie. The next 2/3 is him as a high school senior, and the kid is a terrible actor. And I blame this as Robert De Niro, who is one of my favorite actors of all time, but he is a terrible director.
He also has been putting up a lot of garbage on
He's
the board.
also been putting up.
He's been throwing up stinkers.
Have you
for
seen
a
the
good
trailer
20 years.
for Robert De Niro's newest movie?
No, what is it?
It's
a horny
called-
grandpa or some shit?
It's like Fight with Grandpa or something.
Oh, no.
And it's basically it's Robert De Niro as this grandpa who moves in.
Dude,
with
I was
his son.
joking, by the way.
Robert De
And
Niro.
you were like, no, for real.
Robert De Niro is a grandpa who like moves in with his son and takes over his grandson's old room, and like the grandson has to go to the attic, and the grandson and Robert De Niro have like a prank war to like who like winner takes the room, and it looks like such garbage.
Someone needs to sit him down and be like, yo, dude, like, what's going on here? Like, I've heard rumors that he lost a lot of money. That his wife has spent a lot of his money, or his ex-wife now. Okay,
he's
that
getting
makes
divorced.
a lot of sense, actually.
Yes, I heard that his wife had put him into. I mean, this is all just like internet rumors and shit.
knows? Yeah.
So who the fuck really knows? I have heard that his wife put him in a lot of debt, and that's the reason that they're now getting divorced. But the internet
In
rumors.
debt? Like he's negative?
Or not
That would
negative,
be so sad.
but had spent so much that he basically has to be doing these shitty movies.
Yeah,
'Cause, like,
that's like Robin Williams at the end of his life, apparently. Fucked up, man. Let's bring this thing on home.
Let's bring
What else?
home.
What else about The Sopranos?
I don't know. Oh, we were talking. All right, because I got sidetracked by fucking Matthew Bevilacqua and his shitty acting.
Lipistics, Tone.
Lipistics, Tone. It's great that this
Like that
episode.
fucking methamphetamine.
It's great with this episode that kind of starts with these characters are damned, and like there's a spot for them in hell, and like Carmela seems this as like this is like your chance, like you've given a second chance to turn your life around. Like, turn your life around. Like, you've been warned. There's a spot for you in hell. Change your life around. Stop doing fucked up things so that you can save yourself. And, some of the characters, kind of mull it over. But then it ends in a murder. It ends in them basically just rejecting that. And I feel like, because Tony believes he isn't going to hell, but he does believe that at some point he's going to prison. And I always view this as an acceptance of look, I know this doesn't end well for me. This life does not end well for me, but this is the price of admission because I wanted to be a part of this family. I wanted to be a part of the mob. I wanted to be part of this culture that my father and my uncle helped started. And if the price of admission is that one day there's a knock on the door and the federal agents are going to take me to jail, then I will accept that.
It reminds me of the tapes that were made in the apartment above the Ravenite that Gravano and Gotti are on in the old lady's apartment up there. And right. Gotti just basically says, we're all going to the can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They knew it. They knew it. That was that's the entry fee. Yeah. The entry fee, you want to live this life, all right, you have to give us the last 20 years of your life.
Fuck that, man.
Fuck that.
That's too big of a price.
Yeah, that's what I'm terrible.
All right.
Do you have any final thoughts, or is that...
I mean, look, what I'm not going to sit here and pontificate on the greatness of The Sopranos. I think that's been done 1,000 fucking times, but... My favorite part about The Sopranos are these kind of existential questions. So I don't want to get too deep into that because, it's like I said, it's been done.
Right.
But this was a fun one. We kind of went all over the place.
We kind of went all over this
supposed to be The Sopranos, but
I mean, we're talking about one aspect of a show with a lot of things. So, don't be surprised if The Sopranos comes up again. I'm just saying, it's a lot we can talk about.
Exactly.
All right. This has been Movies by McManus. So check out our YouTube channel where you could see the video of this or the 10-minute breakdowns I kind of do on our channel. Follow us on social media at Movies by McManus. I'm Greg. Mike?
Yeah, just like Greg said, check out his breakdowns on YouTube. We also have the video version of the podcast on YouTube, and the podcast is out on all the streaming platforms where you could find it. And we got another one coming up soon, so we'll be right back, and we're gonna keep bringing these episodes out. And thank you for listening. Appreciate it. Thanks for the support.
Thank you for listening. This movie was by McManus. All right, everybody, have a good night.